Hey guys, it's Kevin in the Murphy guys. We're reviewing. This is a movie that I was very much looking forward to, and finally I've seen it, and that is A Quiet Place. And what A Quiet Place is all about is basically, at this time, the world is in sort of a dystopia. There's not many resources left in the world, and basically, everyone has basically gone into hiding because there is this monster that is blind, but if it hears you, it will immediately come after you, and it very much could put you at risk. And basically, we follow this one family who does their best to avoid this creature and basically try to stay together and, protect each other in, whatever the cost, pretty much. So, A Quiet Place in general, I was very interested in this movie. I mean, just the marketing in general, there's really never been a film like this before, let alone a horror film like this, and it was just a very daring film to come out, and I thought that it just looked really original and different, and just not really something we see a lot, and I was really hoping that, it would be exactly like it, like it seemed, and I have to say, A Quiet Place was pretty much everything I wanted to be. This is a fantastic horror film that is easily one of the most spine-tingling, just pure unnerving horror films I have seen in a very long time. But we're just getting into right now, starting off with the cast. And easily that is one of the best things about this movie. The cast here is phenomenal. Everyone really did an incredible job here. But easily the standout of this movie is Emily Blunt as our sort of main character. There's not really a main character in this movie. It really is everyone's film, but I think out of everyone, she definitely does have the biggest arc for sure, and her character, Evelyn, is very interesting. She is, of course, this mom, and she's doing her best to provide for her kids, but she also is heavily pregnant, and when I say heavily pregnant, I don't mean like a couple months. Like, this baby is due at any point, so she's in constant fear throughout the whole movie, because she knows that the second she goes into labor, that she is immediately putting herself at risk, and I think she did an incredible job. Particularly one scene in a bathtub, I know everyone's been talking about, but it really is an incredible scene to watch. You fear for her throughout the film, but you can also see how protective she is of her kids, and she really did an incredible job here. This is easily one of Blunt's best performances I have seen, and definitely some of her finest work to date. I really loved her in this movie. But that's not discrediting the rest of the cast, because everyone else here is great. John Krasinski, I thought, also was fantastic here. What I really loved about his character is, similar to Blunt, he is very protective of his children. He will often put himself at risk just for the benefit of letting his children be able to live, so they will be able to, to survive, basically, and you can see how he's gone about this, and I really loved where his character went in the film. I thought he was incredible here, and again, similar to Blunt, he does a lot of this without uttering a single word, and he does such an incredible job in this movie. Really got me emotional points, I have to say, and I think after this film, John Krasinski has really put himself on the map for sure. I think definitely he has tons of potential as an actor. He was really great here, and I'm very interested in seeing where he does go in his future endeavors after this film. And then the rest of the cast I thought also was really great. There really are only two other people to talk about because there's only like four main characters in this movie. Millicent Simmonds. Now, let me just say, after this movie, I obviously recognize her from the Wonderstruck trailer, but after seeing her in this, I very much regret not seeing that movie because she is incredible here. What I love about, her character here is that they never really use the whole idea of, her character Reagan. They never use the whole thing of her being deaf as a gimmick. Obviously, Simmonds is deaf in real life, and the film does an incredible job of using this to their advantage and really giving us this very haunting arc for her. And there are a lot of scenes where we're seeing things through her perspective and we're hearing things through her perspective, and she really did an incredible job in this movie. I think out of everyone, she definitely did have the toughest road because sure, the others they have to do without sound, but at least they can hear the other actor that's speaking to them. Simmonds has to do this entire thing deaf, so this film takes on a whole new meaning for her, and she did an incredible job. And same with Noah Jupe. I've always really enjoyed him since I saw him in Suburbicon, and I continue to say he is one of the finest child actors working today. I think both him and Simmonds have tons of potential after this movie. I think they're going to get tons of work after this. I will be surprised if, you know, most of this cast doesn't get tons of work after this movie, because honestly, everyone did a fantastic job here. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, because that is definitely the thing that I was most looking forward to, but also the most skeptical about. Because, of course, the trailers, they were marketing this film as being a film that basically utilizes the element of silence, is a film that doesn't really have a lot of dialogue, and I was really worried that this was going to be one of those things where that's like a fraction of the film. Like, it's not like the whole movie. And thankfully, that's not the case here. Almost the entire movie is completely devoid of dialogue, and that tone is so well realized. One of the best things about this film is the atmosphere. There's just a constant sense of tension here. Even when things are looking good for this family, you're constantly in fear. You're constantly worried that this creature is going to come after them, because if it hears the slightest incantation of something, it immediately goes near the family. And I thought they did such a great job with it. It's so exhilarating and such a thrill ride, and I thought the tone was very well utilized. What I liked about the tone is that it's not just a horror movie. This is a family drama as well, and I thought they did a really good job with that. There are some really dramatic moments in the film, particularly some stuff involving Millicent Simmonds' character, and it was honestly really well done. It never really felt too heavy-handed. It never really felt forced. It felt very natural, and it makes sense because, you know, there's not always going to be tension. They're not always going to be running away from this monster. There are going to be, you know, some... You know, there are going to be some points where it's just downplayed a bit, and there are going to be some points where things are a bit more calm, and I do think that they handled that really well. I was very happy with the directing here, and John Krasinski, I think, definitely has a real future after this movie. A lot of people are saying this is like the Get Out of 2018, and the biggest comparison I can find is the way in which we were all so shocked at how great of a director Jordan Peele is. I think is very similar to John Krasinski. I think both of these guys have tons of have a very bright future as these very auteur type directors, and I think we're definitely going to see more stuff from Krasinski in the future, because you can tell this was his passion project for sure, and he really did everything to make sure that it went exactly the way he wanted to. But then the writing in this movie, I think, also is incredibly well done, because what I really love about this movie the most, I have to say, is the writing. Again, I was really worried that this entire film, you know, there was going to be a lot of dialogue, and there's really not. And the way this film can actually tell a riveting story without having barely any dialogue whatsoever. It's not like there's not dialogue, most of it's done in sign language, but without having any sort of spoken dialogue whatsoever is very daring, but they really handled it well, I have to say. The story with the family in general is really great. Without spoiling anything, they actually do have a very personal sort of connection to this creature, and they have personally been affected by this certain thing that's happened, and I thought that was also very well done. It perfectly got us invested in the characters. You could tell what they were going through, and you know, the film starts off, right off the bat, you're kind of just thrown into this situation, and I really liked how jarring it was, because you start off and it says it's like day 89, and you're like, how did this really happen? Well, if you guys are thinking this movie's going to give you answers as to how this happened, or what this creature's really about, that's not the movie we're following here, and honestly, I don't think it's that big of a problem. A lot of people have been complaining about that, and I don't think it's really that big of a deal, to be honest with you. I think the movie is less about, you know, what is this creature, and why is this happening, and more just about how this one family deals with it, and getting into their whole lifestyle was really compelling, honestly. I mean, there's so many things that they have to do in this movie, to the point where they can't even wear shoes. Yeah, there are even points in the movie where anytime they walk in the forest, they can't even wear shoes because the slightest sound, like I said, is going to lure the creature to them, and it's going, the monster is going to hear them, and it's really well done. I mean, when they eat, they can't eat on plates, they have to eat on these, like, lettuce leaves. I mean, it was very well thought out in terms of the world building, and that's something I really did love in this movie. It's just getting into, you know, how their whole sort of lifestyle is shaken up because of this one event, and I thought it was incredibly well handled in that regard. I should also mention, though, this film is scary, and I mean it is terrifying, but it's not in the sense of jump scares or in the sense of, you know, just trying to scare you. It's mainly because of the atmospheric sense of it all. Like I said, the film does such a great job of, you know, utilizing the idea of silence and the idea of just complete seclusion that you often feel like you're right there with them. And to be honest with you, while I was watching this movie, I myself felt very unnerved, and not just for the family, but for just the whole experience in general, to the point where, and I'm not lying about this, I know this is going to sound silly, but when I, you know, ate my popcorn and things like that during the movie, I was so quiet about it. Like, I didn't even reach for the bag because the smallest rustle, you know, could lure that creature, and it just, again, I know it sounds silly, it does, but it just speaks volumes about how well this movie was able to project this sense of fear and this sense of just constant paranoia, and they handled that perfectly. I was so impressed when it came to the scares in this movie because, again, they're not jump scares. It just feels very natural, and you never really know when it's going to happen. There are points where you think something is going to happen and it doesn't, but it's not like a false jump scare, and they handled that quite well, I have to say. They really handled it in a way I haven't really seen many horror films do, but I think this is definitely one of those films that definitely other horror films should really take a lesson from and definitely should pick up on, because this movie knows how to scare you in a very subtle, creepy way, and other horror films don't really know how to do that. And it's rare that a film really scares me as much as this one did, but this one scared me so much that when I was even coming out of it, I was still kind of traumatized, to be honest with you. I really was. And again, it just speaks volumes about how well done it's able to scare you, I have to say. I think they did that perfectly. But like I said, I thought the main story involving the family was also very interesting. There's a lot of stuff that they're going through in this movie that I did think was very compelling overall. And, you know, this is basically just a normal family. They're doing their best to live their life, and I really was finding myself getting invested in these characters, and I thought they handled it quite well. The cinematography here is incredible. Almost the entire film, you're in this darkness. There are scenes with light, but most of the movie does take place in the dark, and again, this is one of those films where I honestly feel it's required to see it in a movie theater. If you don't see this in a theater, you're missing out. You really are, because it really does add to that whole intimate sort of feeling, and unfortunately, my audience didn't really understand the magnitude of that. There were many times where I heard phones going off and things like that. And again, that's a whole separate thing. But you know, if you can see this in a theater, definitely, because it definitely does deserve to be there, and I think it really does warrant a theatrical viewing for sure. But the cinematography, like I said, is great, and the design on the creature, I don't want to spoil it, but it's really unique. It really reminded me, to be honest with you, of a film that I didn't really enjoy that much, but it was Insidious: The Last Key. How creative that creature looked, very similar to this one. That's like the only thing I can really compare it to, though. To be honest with you, it felt like this otherworldly presence that we just haven't seen before, and the film did a really great job of not trying to make this creature look like other things, and they did a really good job with that overall. Really, my only complaint with this movie, I have to say, is the score, because going into this, I didn't think there really was going to be one, and I'm not saying that this movie shouldn't have had a score. Sure, they could have had one, but the movie often relies on this background music and this very sort of intense, you know, very suspenseful music that plays when these characters are in various, you know, situations and when the tension is really high. And for a film that utilizes the idea of quietness as much as this film, you know, does, I don't really think it was required. I think, to be honest with you, they could have just cut the music completely. The only reason I think this was here is because it was a major release. If this film would have been a limited release, I think none of that would have been implemented. And I think, honestly, the film would have been that much more disturbing. It's not that it wasn't. I'm not saying, like, it deterred my suspense level at all, because no, I was completely on the edge of my seat throughout this entire film, and I was completely locked in to everything that was going on. You know, there's rarely a second to breathe, like I said, and I just felt some of the score at points just felt a little jarring, and they really do overuse it a lot in the second half of this movie. At first, they don't, but then the second half, they do use it a lot, and again, it's a good score. It's not like it's like a bad score or anything, but I just didn't really feel like it was needed here. And then the editing, the movie, for the most part, is very well paced up till the ending. The ending, while really well done, did feel a bit abrupt to me. I just felt that, you know, they could have had at least one more scene, and it was one of those things where it's just like, oh, it's over now. Like, it wasn't like a disappointing it's over. It was just kind of like, oh, like, it didn't feel done yet. It felt like there was still just a little bit more of a story to tell, and, you know, I'm hoping that was meant to be an ambiguous ending and not them trying to set up a sequel, because I do not want to see a sequel of this movie. I think this works perfectly as a standalone film, and I really do not want to see a sequel of this. Guys, for the most part, though, A Quiet Place is one hell of a film. It is unlike any horror film you've seen in a very long time. It's unnerving. It's got some incredible performances. It's constantly terrifying, and it really will put you on the edge of your seat in a way that I think most films don't. And like I said, I think this is definitely one to see on the biggest screen possible. This is easily one of my favorite movies of the year, and I'm definitely going to give A Quiet Place overall an A. Easily one of the best horror films I've seen in a while. It's definitely going to take a lot to beat this one, and for sure this will definitely be on my best. I will be very surprised if this isn't on my best of list at the end of the year. So over, guys, in my review of A Quiet Place, let me know what you guys thought of this one overall, left your thoughts, and like I said, definitely check this one out, guys. It is the highest of recommendations for sure. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.